Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone through all the sources and research you sent over on financial planning. And today, well, we're tackling something absolutely vital. It's about securing your legacy, keeping it safe from chaos and, frankly, confusion.
Yeah, it really is probably one of the most critical conversations we can have with you. Because the sources, they weren't just like academic theory, they're super actionable, designed to shift how you think, moving from just, hoping for the best to actually planning.
Exactly. And the core question that came straight from the material is your family really trusted?
And by trusted, we mean, have you actually put the legal stuff in place, the mechanisms to make sure what you want to happen happens smoothly and privately?
Right. Let's just cut through the noise right away. Here's the big takeaway, maybe a bit counterintuitive for some. Even if you've got a perfectly written, signed will right here in the U.S., that will, on its own, often isn't enough. Not enough to protect the assets, or your family's time, or even their emotional energy, especially when they need it most.
That's the crux of it. It's the difference between leaving them, peace of mind, or leaving them a mountain of paperwork. Most people think, okay, got a will, check. They feel like they've done their job.
Yeah, responsibility fulfilled.
Right. But relying only on that will, you're kind of unintentionally setting them up for months, maybe even years, dealing with the courts. We really need to dig into the alternative, the structure that, well, frankly, successful families use to bypass that whole system.
Okay, so we've got a lot to unpack here. We're going to move pretty quickly, but
Yeah.
ground everything in solid, accessible knowledge. Think of this as like your essential guide to getting informed, making sure you leave behind a clear map for the future, not, a mess. Let's start with the mindset shift. That's where it all begins. Okay, so the mindset first. The goal here is structure, not struggle. That's the mantra from the sources. And the first step is making a conscious choice, moving away from just hoping things work out, relying on luck, towards building on planned wisdom. There was this affirmation in the material that really crystallized it. I think everyone should hear this.
Oh, absolutely. It really captures the why behind setting up systems. It goes, my family's future is protected by wisdom, not luck, because I plan ahead so my children inherit peace, not paperwork.
See, it completely rejects the idea that a good outcome is just like good fortune. It puts you in the driver's seat. You're actively building that protection. And wisdom, when people hear that word, they often think old age, right? They're, wise old philosopher types. But the sources gave a much more practical definition, more immediate.
Yeah, they defined it really well. Wisdom isn't about age. You don't need gray hair for it. It's simply having the ability to apply knowledge you've gained to actually move your life forward.
Okay.
So you could be 21, learn about trust and probate like we're discussing now, and if you actually use that knowledge to set things up, that's wisdom. If you just know how it works but don't do anything, well, the sources argued you're just informed, not wise. Application is everything.
Right. So wisdom is applying the knowledge. And the system is what you build with that wisdom. The materials kept hammering this point. True wealth, the kind that outlives you, isn't just leaving behind stuff, a house, a bank account. It's leaving behind systems and really clear instructions.
Precisely. Because think about it, a physical asset like a house, it's just sitting there. It could be sold off, maybe mismanaged, could even be lost to taxes or debt. But a system, a clear, legally sound set of instructions designed to benefit the next generation, maybe even ones you'll never meet. That's what lasts.
So the goal is building something that keeps working.
Yeah.
That can maybe even reach your great-grandchildren.
Exactly. If you just leave cash, well, that can vanish pretty quickly, a year, maybe less. But if you leave a system that says, okay, continuously invest this or maintain this protection, that system can grow for decades, generations even.
This idea of leaving clarity, not confusion, it really hits home. We've all heard those awful stories, right? Families just turning on each other, fighting over assets.
Oh, yeah. Even when there is a will.
Even with a will.
Yeah. And almost every single time, the root cause is a lack of clear structure, lack of information, confusion. It breeds conflict. If the system isn't clear and the instructions are vague, people start interpreting things differently and boom. Conflict. The sources were really blunt about this, leaving a struggle behind. It tarnishes your memory. People remember the stress, not the good stuff. Clarity through a solid system, that's the only way to really protect your legacy from that kind of infighting.
Which brings us to this powerful concept the sources used. You are the CEO of your family's legacy. Now that sounds a bit like corporate speak maybe, but what does it actually mean in practice? What decisions are we talking about?
It means you got to treat your personal finances and your family's future with the same kind of seriousness you'd apply to running a successful business. Think about it. A good CEO doesn't just hope the company does well. They put systems in place. They look at risks. They make decisions now that ensure future growth, future stability. So planning your legacy isn't some fluffy, sentimental thing you do later. It's a core executive job you need to handle right now.
And what happens if we drop the ball on that? We fail to be that CEO. The sources had that really personal story, didn't they? About the danger of not having that structure, maybe hiding the struggle.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Really illustrated the point. The speaker talked about having a stroke, and it was triggered by immense stress, financial loss from a major business failure. Just crushing pressure.
Right. And then this acquaintance comes along.
Yeah, sees him maybe looking unwell and just lays into him, tells him he needs to play squash and lose some weight, based on nothing but a surface glance.
Ouch. Talk about judgment without context.
Exactly. The acquaintance had no clue about the life-or-death financial storm the speaker was weathering. He just saw the physical signs of stress and jumped to conclusions. Laziness, bad diet, whatever.
It really shows how vulnerable you are when things are chaotic behind the scenes. If your financial house isn't in order, that stress leaks out in ways people just don't understand, and they judge.
Yeah. Right. And the acquaintance, operating with maybe 10% of the information, made these assumptions that were just completely wrong.
And the irony, the really cool twist, was that the acquaintance himself later had a stroke after his own business went under.
Yeah. Proving, that these huge financial pressures, they can break anyone. They're universal triggers.
And the speaker's decision not to visit him in the hospital,
Yeah.
that wasn't spite, was it?
No, not according to the source. It was self-preservation. He recognized that temptation to judge back, to get angry, and he knew that falling into that cycle would just tear down everything he'd painstakingly rebuilt for himself. The big lesson he took away from all of it was crystal clear. Make sure your name is remembered for structure, not struggle. You break those destructive cycles, the financial chaos, the stress, the judgment, not just by earning money, but by building systems. Enduring systems that anticipate these crises that, let's face it, are probably going to happen.
That's the real opportunity, isn't it? To consciously chart a different course, a path that's predictable, peaceful. Maybe we can't personally walk our kids all the way to, the promised land of financial security.
Right.
But the absolute minimum, the non-negotiable, we have to draw the map. We have to shut the door on those generational curses, the debt, the confusion, the panic cycles, build something solid, something clean, financially speaking, for the next generation.
Okay, mindset established. We're CEOs of our legacy, aiming for structure. Now, let's zero in on the tool most people think achieves this, the will. The source material gave some global context, mentioning places like Nigeria, where, a will is often the main way property gets passed down.
That's right. In a lot of places, a will is considered, the standard sufficient. Although the source did kind of jokingly add that even with a good will there, you still often get disputes. We still get fight, was the quote, I think.
Right. So even there, it's not perfect.
No. But the expectation globally is often that a will provides the necessary clarity. Okay, but here's the pivot. The surprise, and really the core problem we need you to understand, is the situation here in the U.S. If all you have is a will, you might be leaving your family exposed in a way you never intended. Why doesn't a will deliver that peace and clarity we were just talking about?
Because in the American legal system, a will basically functions as instructions for the court. It doesn't avoid the court. It actually triggers court involvement. If your assets are just in your name when you pass, that will means your estate has to go through a process called probate. And probate, for most families, that's the trap. That's the struggle, not the structure.
Wait, hang on. Isn't probate, necessary to make sure debts are paid, taxes handled, everything distributed fairly? What exactly is probate, and why is it this big bad thing we need to avoid?
Okay, good question. Probate is the official court-supervised legal process. It validates the will, makes an inventory of everything you owned, pays off your creditors and taxes, and then finally distributes whatever's left to your heirs. It's designed to be thorough, sure, but it's also designed to be public and slow and expensive. It completely undermines that goal of leaving peace, not paperwork.
Okay, let's break down those consequences. The source laid out 3 big ones. Let's start with the financial. Hit the cost.
Right. First off, probate costs money, real money. You've got statutory fees, often calculated as a percentage of the gross value of the estate, everything you owned, before debts.
Gross value. Wow.
Yeah. Then add attorney fees, because you'll likely need a lawyer to navigate the process. fees for the executor or administrator managing things, court filing costs. It adds up fast. The source warned these costs can easily eat up thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, money that should have gone to the family.
Can you give us a feel for that? Like on a regular-sized estate, say someone owns a house worth a couple $100,000.
Absolutely. Let's take that $200,000 estate example. Depending on the state, those statutory fees alone could be anywhere from, say, 2% to 5%. So right off the top, that's $4,000 to $10,000 gone. Just vanish into the court system before anyone gets anything.
Just like that.
Just like that. Then layer on the lawyer's fees. If there are any hiccups, any disagreements, those fees can balloon quickly. We're talking potentially tens of thousands lost from that $200. That money is just gone, funding the process instead of supporting your family.
Okay, that's a significant drag.
Yeah.
But the second consequence, time. That sounds almost worse from an emotional standpoint for a grieving family. How long are we talking?
The time delay can be brutal, honestly. Even a straightforward, uncontested probate, you're probably looking at 6 to 9 months, minimum. Months. And if things get complicated, maybe there's an issue with the house title or unexpected debts pop up or, heaven forbid, someone decides to contest the will. The process can easily drag on for, well, the source said, even years. Seriously, years.
And during that whole time?
During that entire period, the family might be locked out, can't sell the house, can't access bank accounts that weren't set up perfectly right, can't use the assets they might desperately need just for daily living expenses or funeral costs. Imagine that stress, grieving and facing financial limbo. It turns sorrow into pure panic.
So everything's basically frozen until a judge says, okay. And the third big consequence, this is the one I think really alarms people, loss of privacy.
Yeah, because probate is a public court proceeding. And court records, the public documents. So when your estate goes into probate, you're essentially broadcasting your private financial details to the world.
Meaning anyone can find out.
Anyone. Creditors looking for payback, nosy neighbors, scammers looking for targets, predatory businesses. They can find out exactly what you owned, what debts you had, who inherited what, down to the penny sometimes.
Why is that such a big deal in the real world, though? Beyond just being uncomfortable.
Well, a couple of big reasons. First, it puts a target on your family's back. If it's public knowledge that your spouse or kids just inherited a chunk of money or property, they immediately become vulnerable. Financial predators look for that stuff. Second, most people just value their privacy, right? They don't necessarily want everyone they know or don't know digging into the specifics of their finances, whether it's a lot or a little. Probate completely strips that away. It invites strangers the court system into what should be a private family affair.
Okay, I have to push back just a bit here because I know people are thinking this. What about those common tricks people use, like putting a house in joint tenancy with a spouse or naming a payable on death beneficiary on a bank account? Don't those skip probate for those specific things?
They can, yes. For those specific assets, those methods can bypass probate initially, but it's like putting patches on a leaky roof instead of fixing the whole thing. It's not a system.
Oh, so?
Well, take joint tenancy. Sure, the house might pass directly to the surviving owner without probate, but now that asset is fully exposed to their creditors, their potential lawsuits. And what if the surviving joint tenant passes away shortly after, or you both pass together in an accident? Now the asset probably falls right back into probate anyway because there's no backup plan in place.
Ah.
And payable on death accounts work for that account, but what about the house, the car? The investment portfolio. What if you open a new account later and forget to designate a beneficiary? Any asset not specifically titled to avoid probate can still trigger the whole expensive, time-consuming probate process for everything else that wasn't perfectly set up. The sources weren't talking about these one-off fixes. They were focused on creating a comprehensive, watertight system.
Got it. So the takeaway is stark. Relying just on a will in the U.S. basically guarantees you pay the courts, you make your family wait, and you give up all your privacy. Which explains why people who really prioritize structure, like the wealthy, almost never rely on just a will. Okay, so that leads us right into the solution the sources strongly recommended, the living trust. Now, historically, like you said, this felt like something only for the super rich, right? The wealthy secret, complex, expensive.
Yeah, that perception is really outdated, but it hangs on. The wealthy invested in this knowledge in these systems because they understood the huge cost of not having them. The thousands lost to probate, the delays, the lack of privacy, they saw that as unacceptable waste.
While maybe the average person felt it wasn't for them?
Exactly. The poor or middle class often think, oh, estate planning, that's too pricey, or I don't have millions, why do I need a trust? That thinking, according to the sources, is incredibly dangerous and ultimately more expensive. If you own a home in the U.S., you almost certainly need a trust. The cost of setting one up now is tiny compared to the probate fees you'll save your family later.
It's about perspective then. Planning beyond just your own lifespan, ensuring the structure lasts. Okay, let's get practical. What exactly is a living trust? And crucially, how does it let you sidestep that whole probate court mess?
Let's use the straightforward breakdown from the source material. Step 1. You create a legal entity. A living trust, often called a revocable living trust, is basically a protected legal entity you set up while you're alive and well. Think of it like a protective box you create. It's separate from you, legally speaking, but you control it.
Okay, a legal box.
Right.
And step 2 is putting things in the box, funding it.
Exactly. That's the key step. You actively transfer ownership of your major assets into this trust. So your house title changes from John Smith to the John Smith Revocable Living Trust. Same for maybe investment properties, cars, certain bank accounts, brokerage accounts.
So the trust owns it, not John Smith personally.
Correct. And because John Smith, the individual, doesn't legally own those assets anymore when he passes away, there's nothing for the probate court to administer regarding those assets. They're already held within the trust structure.
Okay, but hold on. This is where people get nervous. If the trust owns my house, does that mean I lose control? Like, can I still sell it? Can I refinance? Does the trust make my life complicated now?
That is absolutely the #1 fear, and it's based on a misunderstanding. The beauty of a revocable living trust is you retain complete control while you're alive and capable. Typically, you, the person creating the trust, wear 3 hats. 1, you're the grantor, or settler, the one who creates and funds it. 2, you're the trustee, the manager of the assets in the trust, which is usually you. 3, you're the beneficiary, the one who benefits from the assets, also usually you, during your lifetime.
So because I'm the trustee?
Because you're the trustee, you call the shots, you can sell the house, buy a new car, manage investments, close bank accounts, pretty much anything you could do before. The paperwork might just list the trust's name, but you are the one signing and making decisions. You lose 0 control over your finances during your lifetime. The trust structure is primarily about what happens after you can no longer manage things yourself, either due to incapacity or death.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction. So step 3 is deciding who gets what later on.
Yes. Inside the trust document, you clearly name your beneficiaries, who gets what assets, and under what conditions, your kids, spouse, charities, whoever. And very importantly, you also name a successor trustee. This is the person or institution you designate to take over managing the trust when you no longer can.
Ah, so when I pass away, the trust is already holding the assets, and the successor trustee just steps in automatically, without needing a judge's permission.
That is precisely how you bypass the court. Since the trust entity already owns the assets, and the trust document itself contains all your instructions and names the new manager, the successor trustee, there's simply no legal reason for the probate court to get involved with those assets. The successor trustee just follows the instructions you laid out in the trust document, privately, efficiently.
Okay, and what about the will? Does it just disappear? Step 4 covered its new rule, right?
Right. The will doesn't vanish, but its job gets much smaller. It often becomes what's called a pour-over will. Its main function is basically just to act as a safety net. It typically says something simple like, anything I might still own in my individual name at my death should be transferred or poured over into my living trust.
So if I, forget to retitle my new car into the trust, or maybe miss a small bank account.
Exactly. The pour-over will catches those stray assets and directs them into the trust. Now, those specific forgotten assets might still need to go through a simplified or small estate probate process just to get them into the trust, depending on their value in state law. But the bulk of your estate, the major assets already in the trust, they avoid probate completely.
It's like a backup catcher. The will says, hey, trust, catch this. And the trust, holding everything else and all the rules, handles the distribution instantly.
You got it. The end result? Clarity. Peace. For the people left behind. When the grantor passes, the family, through the successor trustee, usually gets access to assets much faster. We're talking weeks, maybe, instead of months or years. No court delays, no probate fees eating into the inheritance, and everything stays private.
The sources really make a strong case that paying for a trust now is basically buying time, money, and sanity for your loved ones later. It really does seem like leaving structure instead of struggle. All right, so the living trust creates that efficient structure for transferring assets, but the sources took it a step further. They emphasized combining the trust with another tool for, immediate power and protection, life insurance.
Yes, this combo is where the planning goes from just protecting what you have to potentially multiplying it, or at least ensuring its smooth transfer. The most immediate, practical use, protecting the estate against debt. Let's be real, most people don't die completely debt-free. The biggest one is usually the mortgage.
Right. So if I die, my house is in the trust. It avoids probate. Great. But the bank still wants its mortgage payments, right? How does life insurance fix that?
That debt is the struggle that can linger even with a trust. So the strategy is pretty straightforward. Get a life insurance policy where the death benefit is enough to cover the outstanding mortgage balance, plus maybe other major debts like car loans or significant credit card balances. When you pass, the insurance payout typically goes directly to the trust, tax-free in most cases.
Okay.
The trust, now flush with cash from the insurance, immediately uses those funds to pay off the mortgage lender and any other designated debts.
And the result for the family is huge.
It's incredibly powerful. The source used the phrase, "The children inherit the house free and clear. The equity is theirs, untouched by the bank." And because the house was in the trust, the court didn't get a piece of the action either, through probate fees on the home's value or the insurance payout.
So it's like a double shield. Trust shields from court, insurance shields from debt.
Perfectly put. That synergy, that's what smart, comprehensive planning looks like. It anticipates the real-world problems.
Okay, and this brings us to a really critical detail the source is hammered on. When you get this life insurance, it's vital to get a policy with living benefits. This isn't just about dying.
Yes, this is so important. It transforms the policy from just legacy protection into comprehensive personal protection for you while you're alive. Living benefits allow you, the policy owner, to access a portion of the death benefit, sometimes a significant chunk while you are still living, if you experience a qualifying major health event.
What kind of events are we talking about?
The sources typically mention 3 main triggers, though policies vary. 1, critical illness. Things like a major heart attack, stroke, invasive cancer diagnosis, kidney failure, stuff that hits hard and often comes with huge medical bills and inability to work. 2, chronic illness. This is usually defined as being unable to perform, say, 2 out of the 6 basic activities of daily living, like bathing, dressing, eating, toileting, continence, transferring without substantial help, think long-term care needs. 3, terminal illness. If you receive a diagnosis with a limited life expectancy, often 12 or maybe 24 months.
Wow. So you can actually use the money meant for after your death, before you die, if you get really sick.
Exactly. That money can replace lost income if you can't work. It can cover medical bills insurance doesn't pay. It can pay for home health care. It protects your other assets, your savings, your retirement accounts, the house equity from being drained by a health crisis. It prevents a health disaster from becoming a total financial disaster for the whole family.
Okay, so it protects the owner's finances while alive, which in turn protects the ultimate inheritance for the family.
Precisely. And the urgency, which the source really stressed, you have to get this kind of policy when you are healthy. You generally can't qualify once you've already had the stroke or gotten the cancer diagnosis. It's proactive. It's applying wisdom before the crisis hits.
That makes sense. Okay, now let's shift gears to the really advanced stuff. Using this trust and insurance combo not just for protection, but for building actual generational wealth. The source defined legacy here as what you leave in place for them, meaning specific binding instructions within the trust document.
This is where it gets really powerful. You leverage the fact that a trust can, theoretically, last for a very long time, far beyond your own life. You're not just distributing assets once, you're creating a financial engine, a system designed to keep working for your lineage.
Okay, let's walk through that specific high-impact example they gave, the one with the mandated instructions for generations down the line. It sounds complex, but the potential payoff seems enormous.
It is complex, but the concept is manageable. The trust acts as the rule book and the funding source. So, instruction number 1, right after the grantor passes away, the successor trustee must use the liquid assets like that life insurance payout we just discussed to eliminate debt, pay off the mortgage first and foremost, secure the base.
Secure the roof over their heads. Like Maslow's hierarchy, the source said. Basic needs first.
Exactly. Foundation secured. Now, instruction number 2. The trust must maintain the life insurance policy or policies held within it. If it's a permanent policy with cash value, the trust keeps paying the premiums out of its other assets or investment returns. This keeps that protective layer active and ensures the cash value keeps growing, usually tax deferred. The trust is essentially funding its own future protection and growth.
Okay, self-sustaining. And then the big one. Instruction number 3, the generational game changer.
This is the mandate that sets up future generations. It dictates that for every person born into your direct lineage, every child, grandchild, great-grandchild, the trust must purchase a specific asset for them. The example used was a $100,000 permanent life insurance policy with living benefits, bought for the newborn, with the premiums paid by the trust's portfolio.
$100,000 policy for every baby. That sounds like a lot. How does that create unreal wealth down the line, as the source put it?
It seems like a lot, but think about the mechanics. When you buy life insurance for an infant, the premiums are incredibly low because their life expectancy is so long. Pennies on the dollar compared to buying it later in life. And that policy now has 80, 90, maybe 100 years to grow. The cash value inside permanent life insurance typically grows tax deferred. So you have decades upon decades of compound growth shielded from annual income taxes.
And the trust ensures this happens automatically for every single descendant.
That's the mandate. The trust acts like a family endowment, or as you put it earlier, maybe a venture capitalist for the lineage. Every single descendant starts life not at zero, but with a built-in, growing financial asset. Later in life, they might be able to access that cash value tax efficiently for big things: college, a down payment on their own home, starting a business, all funded by the system you set up generations ago.
And this just keeps rolling.
It keeps rolling. Each generation benefits, and the trust assets potentially continue to grow, funding more policies. By the time you get to the second or third generation, those early policies have matured significantly. New ones are being added constantly. The cumulative effect, the sheer amount of protected, accessible capital within the family structure becomes immense. It's the power of compounding, fueled by mandatory structure over a very long time horizon.
You're essentially seeding guaranteed financial head starts, ensuring nobody in your line ever has to start from absolute scratch, financially speaking, all built on your initial wisdom and structure.
That's the idea. If the future generations just follow the map you laid out, maintain the trust, follow the instructions, the benefits can be astronomical.
You know, all this emphasis on planning ahead, on building structure before you need it. It connects right back to that really vivid personal story from the sources about the danger of being just a transporter of money.
Oh yeah, that phrase just nails it, doesn't it? A transporter of money, someone who gets funds, maybe even significant funds, but they just pass straight through their hands. Usually because of a crisis or just lack of a plan. The money gets spent, used up by circumstances, instead of being put into a system to create lasting value.
And the story started when the speaker was just 17. Landed his first real job, a government position in Nigeria.
Right. The job itself sounded structured, but the way he got paid, anything but.
Yeah, apparently you had to wait 90 days, 3 months for your very first paycheck.
Can you imagine waiting 90 days and then suddenly, bam, this huge lump sum lands in your lap, and for a 17-year-old kid, paid in cash no less, in the classic brown envelope, it must have felt like winning the lottery.
A huge rush of immediate cash. But it arrived at possibly the worst time. His parents were out of town.
Yeah, off visiting the village, the source said. So young guy, flush with cash, no parental supervision.
Oh.
What happens next?
He and his friends decide to hit an all-night party, and he makes the fateful decision to lend his mother's car, a little Datsun, to a friend who claimed he could drive but didn't actually have a license.
Oh boy, you can see where this is going. Youth, excitement, cash, no license. Recipe for disaster. And sure enough, the friend panics behind the wheel, mixes up the pedals, hits the gas instead of the brake.
Sends the car flying through a ditch and straight into the wall of a mosque. Smashed it up badly.
Oof.
And the immediate reaction wasn't even about the damage, really. It was pure gut-wrenching panic about his parents finding out, especially his mom. They were due back that Sunday. Concealment became priority number one.
Total crisis mode. Find a mechanic, fast. A panel beater, the source called them. Get the car fixed, repainted, looking like nothing ever happened, all within, 48 frantic hours before mom and dad get home.
Exactly. But that kind of rush job, that emergency fix, it cost a fortune. And the speaker ended up having to use his entire first paycheck, that huge 90-day lump sum, to cover it. Because, surprise, surprise, the friends couldn't or wouldn't chip in much.
Wow. Gone. The whole thing just vanished in 2 days.
Yeah. And the source reflected on that, saying if that single paycheck had been handled differently, invested, maybe put into some kind of structured savings, it could have been the seed for something really significant down the road. Instead, consumed entirely by a crisis born from bad judgment and, well, zero structure.
That is just the perfect gut-level illustration of being a transporter of money. Funds
Huh.
arrived, funds departed, nothing lasting was built, no security gained. It taught him a brutal lesson. Money without wisdom, money without systems to guide it. It's just temporary cash flow waiting for the next life crisis to gobble it up.
And that lesson directly fuels the final warning we got from the sources. Act now, don't wait.
Absolutely. You just cannot afford to put this off. People wait. They wait until they feel wealthy enough, whatever that means, or they wait until they're actually thinking about retiring. Or the worst case, they wait until they're already sick. And by then, often, it's simply too late. Getting good life insurance, especially with living benefits, might be impossible or prohibitively expensive. And if something happens suddenly, death or incapacity, the family is left completely exposed, dealing with probate and potential chaos.
So the key is building the structure today, even if your assets seem modest right now.
Exactly. Get the living trust set up now, then any future success, any windfall, maybe a big bonus, an inheritance, proceeds from selling a business. It automatically flows into that protected structure you already built. The system is waiting to receive it. It's protected from day one. If you wait until after the money arrives, now that new wealth is totally exposed to probate, maybe creditors, maybe just poor decisions made under stress, it takes applying that wisdom today to safeguard the success you hope to have tomorrow.
And it loops right back to that idea of integrity and character we started with. Being trustworthy means building reliable structures for others. Being knowledgeable means building systems that actually work, systems that last. #outro. Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground. This deep dive really laid out a clear path, moving from just hoping for the best to actively building structure. Let's just boil it down to the two absolute essential takeaways, the things you really need to act on.
Okay, first, ditch the myth that a will is all you need in the U.S. It's not. You need to move beyond that basic will and establish a living trust. That's the legal structure that lets your assets completely bypass the probate court system, avoiding the cost, the delays, the public exposure. That's step one.
Essential. And step two.
Step two, leverage life insurance, specifically with living benefits. Get it while you're healthy. Use it first as a shield, ensuring your major debts, especially the mortgage, get paid off instantly if you pass. This guarantees your family inherits assets, not liabilities. Free and clear.
So trust plus life insurance with living benefits. That's the core combo.
That's the core combo for robust protection and peace of mind. By understanding this, by taking this information in, you now have the clarity you need. You can talk intelligently with professionals, estate planning attorneys, financial advisors. You can make informed choices. You're ensuring your legacy is built on purpose, on structure, not left to the whims of the court system or chance.
And we want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Something provocative, drawing from that incredible generational strategy we discussed. If your main job as CEO of your legacy is just to draw the map, to set the system in motion, what's the smallest, smartest financial seed you could plant today? Think about that $100,000 policy idea, or its equivalent. That protected asset you could mandate for every single descendant. What's the minimum action you can take now that ensures your great-great-grandchildren might look back and genuinely thank you for the financial head start, the freedom your foresight gave them?
Yeah, what's that one move that echoes long after you're gone? Thank you so much for sharing all your source material with us. We really hope this deep dive gives you that foundational structure you need to protect your family's future.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep building that structure.